Yo, what is going on, guys? Got an interesting video here today. Are crazy women destroying the West? Let's take a look. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments.
Are crazy women destroying the West? We are forever reading headlines about the mental health crisis in the West. We're told that we're becoming more and more unhappy and more crazy. In many Western countries, mental illness is now the leading cause of disability and responsible for 30 to 40% of chronic sick leave, costing us around 4 to 5% in GDP. But who are all these sad and mad people? Well, mostly they're women. Women are 3 times more likely to experience mental health problems than men, and they are twice as likely to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression than men.
I mean, this is what we see, right? With all of the women who are 30 years of age, they're crazy cat ladies, and they're wondering why men don't want them, and they're sitting at home taking all of these pills, which, by the way, interestingly enough, kind of correlates with the amount of women that are single and can't get relationships or marriages out of men. You know, I've been hearing that women have been happier while they're single, guys, you know, living that single woman lifestyle. But apparently, a whole chunk of them are quite literally, contributing to a hit to the GDP. It's that big of a deal, which is absolutely hilarious when you think about it. Understanding the gender gap here, guys. The women, they are out here suffering, as it were.
And this situation isn't improving, it's getting worse. Rates of self-harm among females have tripled in the last 30 years, and rates of suicidality have doubled. But hang on, I thought we had so much more mental health awareness now. The well-being industry is booming.
How crazy is this, by the way? Let's just take this back for a second, okay? Look how much money is being profited off of these individuals. You know, you go to, I don't know, some psychiatrist or your doctor or whatever, and then they just slap you on these pills. And then the reason why they do this, let's be honest, is because they are making absolute bank from people who are out here suffering. Oh, you know, can't focus, take a pill. Oh, you feel bad, take a pill. And I mean, it just goes on, and all of a sudden they're sitting here talking about how they've made $5.6 trillion, by the way. Like, isn't that absolutely insane to think about? $5.6 trillion. It almost makes you think that these people don't actually care about you. They're kind of just medicating you and labeling you as a means to make money off of you. You know, we have all of this different awareness like this woman just spoke about. And I mean, of course we have all this awareness. Why? Because they make money off of it, right? They make money off of labeling you certain things and telling you that there's something wrong with you.
Being industry is booming. This is the era of emotions and self-care. Aren't we all opening up about how we feel, going to therapy and working on ourselves? Well, yes, but that may be part of the problem. 70 to 80% of psychologists and therapists are also women. Given that 1 in 3 women will take antidepressants in their lifetime, how many of these female therapists are also depressed and anxious?
I mean, I would argue probably most of them, to be honest with you. Most of these people who are trying to, quote unquote, fix your problems can't even fix their own in the first place. This is why I think it's so important, guys, that if you're going to go out here and get, I don't know, advice or leadership or guidance or whatever it is from a particular person, I think that you should probably only do this from people that you respect. This is the thing that I always find funny about the modern education system, right? Is people are just set up, you're thrown into these classrooms, you're told to shut up and listen, and then you look at the person who's teaching you, and it's like, man, why in the hell am I listening to this individual? You know, this individual, I don't envy this person's position at all. You know, why am I adopting their worldviews and the way that they think? It's absolutely crazy.
So we likely have many depressed women seeking treatment from depressed women therapists, and surprisingly, women's mental health is getting worse. So why are women so mentally unwell in the first place? Well, as Jordan Peterson and others rightly point out, it's because women are temperamentally higher in trait neuroticism than men. They're more prone to negative thinking and they're more emotional. Okay, I know I'm stating the obvious. But why else? Why are they becoming more mentally unwell? And what's been happening in the Western world in, say, the last 50 years or so? Well, for a start, the amount of women in full-time work has increased by over 50%.
This is always my favorite part, man, in these sorts of in the videos, is like, hang on a minute, the women are realizing that they don't want to work anymore, right? We had this whole big movement, this whole big push, get women in the workplaces, get them in the military, get them in this, get them in politics, right? All of these positions. And now it's like, wait a minute, we don't want women to work, actually. I want to stay at home and I want to take care of the kids. But it's too late. You're 32. You're trying to have kids. You haven't even met a man yet. You're 32 years of age and you're sitting here wanting to be a traditional woman. It's too little too late as far as I'm concerned. I have always found this crap to be incredibly hilarious to me, guys, is, they realize once they've walked off the cliff that it's a little bit too late. And they're like, no, please, we don't want to work. We want men to work for us. But hey, we've already doubled the labor force. We have already half the cost of labor. Go out there, enjoy yourselves. You are liberated, okay? You are liberated from men. Now you get the government looking over you. Essentially, the government has taken over the role of the man in the household. So you can go out there, you can work your jobs, and you can have a great time.
Similarly, the amount of women who are unmarried and single over the age of 30 has increased from 18% to a whopping 54% in the last 30 years.
Yep, of course it has. So let's just sit this here for a second, okay? A drastic increase in the amount of single women, or specifically women who are not married or civil partnered. I'm going to assume this is like long-term relationship, right? Yeah, the men don't want to get married to you, right? And women are putting it off way more now. Right? They're trying to put it off until as late as they possibly can. They want to go out there, they want to party throughout their 20s, and then they want to get to, their 30s and then try and look for marriage. And by then it's too late, right? Why should a man sit there, number one, risk all of his assets, risk any kids he has with you to get married to you? It makes absolutely no sense. Marriage is not something, guys, that these days makes sense to men anymore. It really doesn't. It represents nothing but risk. It represents losing all of your things, and there's just no reason for men to do it, unfortunately. And I don't say that as someone who dislikes marriage, but I certainly dislike the way the legislation surrounds marriage these days. Of course, men are not marrying you. And by the way, these were all the men that you thought were trash anyway. You didn't want these guys. These guys all throughout your 20s, these were the boring men who were too nice. You would go out there and chase the attractive guys. And now these women turn around at this age and try and marry. It's like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no.
Years. And it is estimated that almost half of all women aged between 25 and 44 will be single by 2030. So, women are working more and they're marrying and having a family less, and they're becoming more depressed.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but this sounds like a women problem to me. This is what the women fought for. This is what you wanted. This is what you told men that you wanted every step of the way. I don't need no man. I'm strong and independent. And then they realize, the wall's coming, as it were, right? They're hitting 30s, they're hitting their mid-30s, and they're like, no, please save us. And the men are like, no, thank you.
This isn't only bad for women, it's bad for everyone.
Oh.
This is because all the gains made by extra productivity in the economy, of things becoming quicker, more efficient and cheaper, have been swallowed up by women entering the workplace. Now that there's two salaries, the man and the woman's, that can go towards the mortgage, all that has done is push asset prices up, which means that all the extra money earned goes on rent and mortgages, and there's no lifestyle improvement. All there is just greater difficulty in raising a family and maintaining a work-life balance. Alongside this, more and more women entering the workplace has brought about freedom-destroying equal pay laws. For example, the UK's equal pay laws, covered by the Equality Act, mean that men and women receive equal pay for equal work. That is, work that is similar, equivalent, or of equal value.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact date for this, but I think in America it might be something like 1974 this was enacted. I could very well be quite wrong, but that's just the number that's floating in my brain. Yeah, all of those people saying that, hey, listen, the gender pay gap is real, women are getting paid less. No, they're not. Women get quote unquote paid less because they work less hours, they work less difficult jobs, they're not likely to travel, or at least not likely as men to travel for their work. They don't take on the extra hours, right? The overtimes nearly as much, things like this as women do. And so people get this really confused. Women are not being paid less. They are doing less work, and they are unwilling to take on the risk and the travel necessary to do some work. But we don't want to talk about that, right? There's a gender pay gap. It's so difficult, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it is what it is. And just by the way, you know why it's so difficult to live these days, right? You've got those double incomes coming in. Now, in order to support a family, both the man and the woman has to work. Number one, this is what I was talking about by doubling the cost of labor. But number two, it shouldn't be done in the first place. You see, this is kind of like single mothers, and they're like, man, raising a kid is so hard. Yeah, of course, you're supposed to have the father there, right? Things were working way better back in the day, at least in this sense, because men would go out there, they would work and provide, and they could do that off of a single income, and then the women would be at home looking after the family and the children. But now, guys, the floodgates have opened. Women have said we wanted to work. Society and men said, okay, no problem. And now the women are crying about it this way too. Hilarious.
But who decides what work is of equal value? Well, it seems that it's all down to how the judge interprets the law. So, for example, we have the shocking story of Birmingham City Council, where female dinner ladies argued that they should have been paid the same salary as dustbin men who had been earning more. The judge agreed with them, and the council had to pay out around 700 million, leaving the council bankrupt.
This is exactly what I'm saying, by the way, with like, you know, if it were illegal to pay men and women differently, you would see a lot more of these sorts of court cases, because women would come out here and they would say, hey, I'm not being paid the same. They would sue the company, and then they'd make a bucket load of money. Right, all of these staunch womanists out here will try and convince you that the gender pay gap actually exists. But honestly, if there were a gender pay gap in the sense that most companies were just underpaying women, I mean, a lot of companies would just go underwater immediately because the women would start suing them all.
100 million, leaving the council bankrupt. Or, more recently, there's been the case of retail giant Next. After a 6-year legal battle in which female shop workers argued that it was not fair that they weren't being paid as much as warehouse workers, the high street brand was ordered to pay out 30 million to equalise the pay.
This is crazy to me. Just hearing this, it sounds like they're working different positions, right? The fact that I don't know the intricacies. Goodness gracious, Taylor, go to bed. I don't know the exact specifics of this particular case, right? But it sounds to me like they're separate positions, and then the women still won this court case, by the way, which sounds like absolute nonsense to me. I don't, if the positions are even so much as slightly different, honestly, you shouldn't be getting paid the same. You know, different positions get paid different things. Really, really quite simple. If you work in a different role at the company, or you work less hours, or so on and so forth, I don't think that you should get the same pay. Right? If you've got person A and person B working different roles, they might be quite similar, but if they're working different roles, I don't think that you should be required to pay them the same thing. Maybe one's harder, maybe one's easier, I don't know, but separate roles, separate earnings. Really, really quite simple. You want more money, you do more work, or you do more difficult work. It's always been that way, to be honest, or at least it's supposed to be that way. The person who does more, the person who does harder work, or the person who does different positions, you are going to get paid differently depending on that.
The high street brand was ordered to pay out 30 million to equalise the pay. In their defence, Next argued that the pay for the two roles was based on market prices and to ensure the viability of the business. So we now have a situation where judges are telling employers how much they should pay their workers instead of the market deciding. And this is all happening in an increasingly feminised legal system that focuses on emotions, subjective interpretations, hate speech, hate laws, non-crime hate incidents, and woke activism. And that leads us to our final manifestation of toxic, crazy femininity. Woke. Since the mid-2000s, young women have becoming more and more left-wing. The growing ideological gap between men, who are more likely to lean conservative, and women, who are more likely to lean left, isn't really being caused by men becoming right-wing. It's actually because young women are increasingly adopting radical far-left positions.
I mean, of course it is, okay? Men's opinion on most things hasn't really changed. It really hasn't. If you go and you look, for example, at some of the content that is over on TikTok, guys, it is absolutely crazy what modern women are listening to, some of the ideas that are over there. I can't even post videos over on TikTok saying the most sensible things, right? If I were to take the parts of my content where I say the most sensible things that don't even offend anybody, I would get banned over there so damn quickly, it's not even funny. Right? But the role models for women over on these platforms, I mean, they say the most ludicrous things. They have the most ludicrous positions. That's why I always cover them over on this channel, by the way. People think that a lot of the video clips that we get over here are like these little, these little things that have like 5 views on them and stuff like this. And maybe sometimes they do. But there are a lot, and I do mean a lot, of absolutely massive accounts that women are looking up to these days that spew the most absolute garbage nonsense you have ever seen in your life, ranging from dating to politics and things like this. I mean, guys, I'm Australian, okay, and I understand just how screwed the American political situation is right now, but you have people like Kamala in the race to begin with. I mean, what in the hell is going on there? But you know what? The women on TikTok, for example, oh, they loved her. Orange man bad, apparently. Let's keep going.
Perhaps, given that more of them are entering full-time work, which they struggle with because of their mental health, woke ideas such as harm reduction, focusing on emotions, caring for victim groups, and a critique of meritocratic capitalism appeals to them. If men can work long hours and work their way up the hierarchy quicker than women can, it's easier to call this patriarchy rather than accepting that men and women are just different and that women cannot compete with men.
I mean, let's be honest about it, right? Some of the women can. They just don't want to, man. You know? Like, they really don't. Yes, there are obviously physical differences between men and women, but I mean, let's just start at this. Men, on average, are going to take more overtime than women. They are more likely to travel, they are more likely to take these dangerous positions, and so on and so forth. Women can do a lot of this crap, they just don't want to. Women could probably go out there and be electricians. Do they want to? No. Do they, they don't want to be plumbers. Okay, I know, for example, there are dudes who are plumbers who make an absolute bag, but they don't want that position, it's not glamorous enough. Okay, there are plenty of positions that women can work. They can certainly ascend in their work, go up the positions, as it were. But a lot of them don't want to, guys. Like, they sincerely do not want to. People will try and always convince you, oh, it's just as a result of the patriarchy. Guys, you go and look at university classes and take a look at the distribution of men and women in STEM classes. It's all dudes, or at least, 90% of it is men. You go into an IT class, men. You go into an engineering class, men. You go into some sort of mathematics class, science class, men. I mean, nobody's preventing women from going into these, for example, more difficult fields or things that are going to make them more money. They just don't want to. Even in the positions that are shared by men and women, again, women are far less inclined to do these sorts of things. They're far less inclined to work over certain hours. I mean, guys, consider it this way. When hours are given to employees, right, you've got the boss, he comes and he says, hey, listen, who wants to work some more hours? Sharon, you in? Sharon will be like, oh, I want to go visit Becky this evening. Meanwhile, John, he's got nothing to do. He's like, yeah, I'll take on 20 more hours this week. I don't give a damn. Give me as many as you got. I'm just going to stay at home and play video games anyway. It's not like I have a wife. You know, men are taking these positions. They're just like, screw it, why not? The women typically don't do this.
Diversity, equity and inclusion, safe spaces, therapeutic spaces, bringing your whole self to work, the tyranny of HR, harm reduction, psychological safety, emotionality, conformity, and aversion to conflict and disagreement, perverse misplaced compassion, perverse misplaced empathy. This is the new academic environment. This is the new workplace. This is the new economy. This is the new legal system. This is the West, and it is being destroyed by toxic femininity and mentally unstable women.
Just a funny note, by the way, on these workplace environments that I wanted to mention. I'm just going to tell a little bit of a story here. Right, I have this friend in real life. He absolutely outbenches me at the gym, the absolute monster, right? This guy, he was working in a office position, and the office position was absolutely filled to the brim with women. I think it was something like 90% women. You know, it was only him and a couple of dudes there, and the rest of the people were women. Now, the job was quite easy, as far as I understand it. When he was telling me about the position, I'd frequently ask him, you know, what's it like and stuff like this. And I asked him, are you concerned about the women? And he told me the workplace environment was absolutely horrible. You know, he goes there, he does his work, he leaves. He doesn't want to be caught up in the drama and everything. And there's so much drama in these female workplaces. Fast forward, this guy ends up leaving that position because of just the environment was completely awful. 90% women, you can imagine the amount of drama. My friend leaves that position. He goes and works an incredibly difficult factory job. Right, he had like a what are those things called? You know, you count your steps on it. He would have thousands upon thousands of steps every single day in a very, very hot environment. You know, heavy work gear all of the time. He would go and work this job, and I said to him, "Hey man, which job is easier on you?" And guess what he said? The factory job. Okay, absolutely. Every second, man. These dudes, they will go out there. They will work these factory jobs. They will work these difficult positions. And you know what? A lot of them just don't want to deal with these crazy women. But guys, we are going to be leaving today's episode there. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next episode. Peace.